Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I rise this morning to make my contributions to the private member's time brought on by Member for Braddon, Craig Garland. And it is great to see items like this before the Parliament. It gives opportunities for the Parliament to share their thoughts and their ideas around such matters, but also to do some research and more learning around some of these items. And as members have mentioned, the pack that was distributed with the motion was useful and provided to a range of information. I hold the shadow portfolios for environment, for climate change, but also for primary industries and energy and renewables. And so in my broad range of responsibilities, I also did some other engagement, consultation and research in preparation for this item today. And I think it's really important when the Parliament is asked to consider matters like this that we take a broad view of the question being asked and seek to understand where there may be unintended consequences or matters that have not yet been considered. It was great to have the documentation of the consultation and the information from the university and from others, from the council, from the NRM, included in the pack. And it was useful for me to see where there is alignment and an understanding of the values in this area and how relevant the requests for a listing are for this place. And it's also of interest to me to note that the pack provided comments where, and it has been mentioned, although it's not mentioned in the motion, that there is this interesting interplay at the moment on the northwest coast between proposed renewable energy projects and the proposal before us today as a Ramsar listing. I think what's really important to recognise, as the other member for Braddon raised, is that we come and we represent our constituencies in a variety of ways, and it is important that when we have the passion that we bring that forward, but also to recognise that sometimes we might share values but not necessarily positions on matters before the Parliament. So I reached out and spoke to a number of different commercial fishery peak bodies to understand what it meant in terms of the marine environment for a Ramsar listing to be applied in this area, but also because I understood that the underlying and not spoken message here is also around that interplay between renewables and Ramsar listings, but also then about primary industries, whether that be fishing or farming. And I had a number of really interesting conversations with those sectors. There hadn't been a lot of direct advocacy from operators on the northwest coast to the various peaks that I spoke to about concerns with the proposed wind development in the area, but there was a couple of issues raised with me around the unintended consequences or the risks of a listing being applied without further consideration and further consultation happening. For some of the fisheries that happen in the area, whether it be in aquaculture or whether it be in wild fisheries, at the moment they enjoy access to this space and they operate in a particular way. And this morning there was the comment about the Tasmanian way of life, and for many people in this area, they have been fishing or farming for generations in this area in this way, and it is part of the woven fabric of this area as well. And so there was a request to ensure that more time was spent and some direct and particular engagement occurred with wild fisheries and aquaculture operators to ensure that there aren't unintended consequences and limitations placed on their ability to access and move through and then also farm in these areas. So it was useful for me that this motion came up because it caused me to have the opportunity to start those conversations. Often in this place with our responsibilities, there's such a broad selection of things that we could be working on. It's when items like this come up that we have the opportunity to have those conversations. So I'm grateful that that occurred. The other thing that was useful for me was to learn more about this area at Robbins Passage and to learn of the vastness and the scale. I in fact, are taking the opportunity to visit the area, be out on the water and out on the land around this area in the weeks ahead when we go into our winter time to focus on our electorates and other parts of our responsibilities. And so, you know, that the scale of the 28,000 hectares of this area will be something that I will be interested to go and visit and to take consideration of while I'm out there meeting with landowners and also proponents in the area. I was also interested in understanding the process and that interaction between the state government and their responsibilities with a future listing and the Australian government and their considerations of future listings, and also the work that has done. And I would like to acknowledge that there has been consultation that has occurred on this to date, but understanding what needs to be prepared and the level of comfort that the government, as landowner in this case, would have to progress this. And I have noted in response to the question that's been raised over the first few weeks of the Parliament that it appears that the government believe there is more work, more consultation, more understanding to be done before a listing can be progressed. And I'm curious about what that might entail and how that might occur. When referencing the processes, it was important to clarify that the listing of wetlands under the International Ramsar Convention is an Australian government responsibility. And while a nomination can be made by a non-government organisation or an individual, a community group, or another entity, it is the Australian government that requires the nomination to meet a number of criteria. There's been a number of contributions, people on their feet. I won't go through the process of repeating what that process is, but it is significant and does take time, but requires that comprehensive work has been done in advance to submit to that process, because, as I've read, the government actually needs to be satisfied in themselves as land manager that they have reviewed and endorsed the information that will be provided in the submission. So whether that be the ecological character of the areas, the descriptions, the boundaries, whether it be around any future management responsibility, there's the information sheet, the Ramsar sheet that needs to be included as well. And then, as I've raised, I feel that there could perhaps be some more consultation and engagement with some of the particular fisheries in the area. And I note that the government have indicated that there still is quite a large volume of work that would lie ahead before this nomination is to occur, that it's been explained by the government that they are in a critical phase of considering that, but it does require the development of a report to summarise the consultation that has occurred. What's been useful by the member is that he has provided individual pieces of information from organisations like, and I had the opportunity to meet with the Cradle Coast NRM just in the last few weeks when I was up on the North West Coast for the energy conference, and it was great. And at that time we talked about a range of issues, and they did also talk about...
House will resume at 2:30.